guys. So we're continuing with in Aztec software interdisciplinary material. The section we left off is mathematics and some terminology in math. We learned that there are 4 types of operations in math, or in arithmetic, which are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We learned that an equation is a statement with 2 sides separated by an equal sign, and it can contain symbols as well. Okay, so we learned that the sum is the result of an addition problem. The difference is the result of a subtraction problem. A product is the result of a multiplication problem. And factors are the 2 numbers or whatever numbers you are multiplying in order to get a product. We learned that multiples are if you have one number and you sequentially multiply that number by like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So those produce multiples of that particular number. Okay, so and then more terminology. Even numbers are numbers divided by 2, and odd numbers are not divided by 2. Integers are basically any whole numbers or counting numbers. They include whole and counting numbers, but whole and counting numbers are, counting numbers are only positive. So they're everything over 1. So they don't include 0 or negative numbers. So counting numbers are numbers you use to count real live objects or animals. They don't include fractions, decimals, negative numbers, or 0. It's like when you count birds, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. There's no parts of a bird or negative birds or 0 birds. It's just going to be everything over 1. However, integers can include negative numbers and 0. So it can be all the counting numbers plus all the negative versions of the counting numbers and 0. So everything on either side of the 0 would be considered an integer. So, and obviously whole numbers are everything that are non-fraction or non-decimals. Okay, and then fractions are parts of a whole number. For example, like 3/5, 2/3, 5/6, whatever. Prime numbers are numbers that cannot be divided evenly by any number but themselves and the number 1. These are prime numbers. For example, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. These are all prime, and actually, except for the number 2, they're also odd by coincidence. So prime numbers can only be divided by themselves and the number 1. Next section is fractions. So improper fractions have a top number larger than the bottom number. Example, 8/7 or 10/3. The numerator is the top number. So in 3/5, 3 is the numerator. A simplified or a reduced fraction is the simplest version of a fraction. So if you have 4/6, you can reduce it to 2/3, and that is the simplified or reduced fraction. Mixed numbers are integers combined with fractions. For example, 1 3/4 or 2 1/2. Also, the denominator of the fraction is its bottom number. So if you have 3/5, the 5 is the denominator. Okay, and then the word decimal. Decimals are integers followed by a decimal point and a value less than 1. Usually these are used for prices or etc. So for $2.99, 2.99, 2 would be the integer, and 9.99 is the decimal part, which is lower than 1. Also, percentages are ratios out of 100. So parts per 100 is what percent means. So that was the arithmetic section, which we just did. The next section is algebra. Algebra takes concepts of arithmetic and uses symbols or letters to represent unknown values or variables. The X stands for an unknown number or value or variable. Coefficients are numbers that are multiplied by the variable. For example, an algebra equation would be something like 3x minus 4 equals 7 plus 2x, and in this equation, the x would be the variable, and if you have 3x, the 3 is the coefficient. For the 2x, the 2 is the coefficient. You may also show inequality, which means you have two sides of an equation which are not equal, and you use a greater or a lesser sign. When you have inequalities, you don't use an equal sign. So that's that. So in the next section is geometry. You look at 2D and 3D shapes. Oh, also, in algebra, you can have more than one variable in an equation. So you can have x, y, z, etc., and you have to solve for those variables. Okay, and then so these are just we're going over everything like in an outline form. So we might go in more detail in subsequent videos for the math section. Okay, so geometry is concerned with the size, the shape, and the position of shapes. A polygon is a 2D or a two-dimensional shape with straight sides. Some polygons are the following: a square, which has 4 sides; a rhombus, a rhombus also has 4 sides, but they're on a slant. A triangle has 3 sides. A rectangle has 4 sides, but 4 sides are not equal length. 2 of the sides are longer. Hexagon has 6 sides. A pentagon has 5 equal sides. A trapezoid has 4 sides also, but 2 of the sides are on a slant, and all the sides are not equal. A parallelogram looks like a rectangle, but 2 of the sides are on a slant, so it's not all perpendicular angles when you have lines on a slant. The angles are not all equal. And then when you have 3D shapes, these take up space. So in a 3D, so sphere is the 3D shape version of a circle, a pyramid of a triangle, a cylinder of, well, I guess that's also like a circle, and then a cube of a square. Geometry provides formulas, which are special equations to help you figure out volume of 3-dimensional objects. So there are equations to calculate different things about shapes, whether in 2D or in 3D. So a perimeter is a 2D, it's expressing the total length of the outside of a 2D shape. That's the perimeter. So if you have a triangle with 3 sides, and you would add side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3, and you get the perimeter. Or for a square, you would do the same, add the 4 sides of a. Okay, well, we're going to pause right here. We'll continue in the next part. Thank you, guys. Bye.